Okay, that one's fine. So, alright, just gonna sync up sound and then we're ready to go.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Cool. Right, so if
And
there's
that's it.
anything, yeah, pretty much. If there's anything that you don't want to talk about, just tell me and we'll move past it.
Nah, crack on, mate. Everything should be sweet.
Right,
I did scan over the questions, I promise.
Yeah.
Media trained, mate. You're all right.
I'm normally okay, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Yeah. We'll go on with it then. So question 1 is, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good at the moment, thank you.
Nice. What's on your mind?
For me at the moment, it's just trying to get a start date for when our season will begin. So at the moment, it seems like we've been in the longest pre-season imaginable. So we've been in training, and we're really thankful to Ealing for that. But to have an end sight or have an end goal is something that we need at the moment, and we're still just waiting on at the moment.
Cool. So what are your thoughts on male mental health?
So for me, male mental health is something that is a bit of a taboo subject at the moment. It's something that's incredibly important to everybody in the world, especially the English population with lockdown going on at the moment, and it's something that isn't addressed in mainstream media. I think the last sort of 6 to 12 months, it's starting to get a bit more attention and a bit more traction to get people moving forward and thinking about it. And the most important part of giving it enough spotlight and bringing it up to people's attention is it's making men realise that they're not alone, and it's making men realise that they actually can go and talk to people, or there's actually people they're willing to help, and it's something that isn't something they should be embarrassed about. It's something they should be able to talk about openly.
So what are your experiences with mental health?
So my experiences with mental health haven't really been anything personal to me. It's been something more that's happened to friends or to family. Myself, I seem to be okay at the moment, and I say at the moment because obviously I'm 33, but coming to the end of a rugby career and moving through life one step at a time, I understand that there might be issues in the future. But the ones that have directly affected me has been the death of some friends that have suffered with mental health, and we didn't really understand what they were going through at the time. And on a family note, I've got family members that have kind of hidden it for years and years and years, and then reach breaking point, and then when you do finally address those issues and they get off their chest, you can see a massive improvement in them.
Okay. Could you I mean, obviously it's not nice to talk about, but you say that you've had people close to you who've struggled with it. Do you think would you want them to come to you quicker than they did, or like what do you wish happened?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, if anybody around me in personal circumstances, I want them to be able to come to me as soon as they can. I want them to understand that what they're going through doesn't make them on their own. If they feel that they're alone or they feel that they're anxious, I want them to be able to open up. I want them to be able to come knock my door. I've got a really good group of friends where we always openly talk to each other. I know a few of them have had mental health issues, and they're at a position now where if they do start slipping back into that trend, they're able to give us a call, not just myself, but people in the group. They're able to approach the subject rather than hiding it. As for people that have departed and looked at suicide and things like that, yeah, you start questioning yourself. Did you do enough? Did you offer enough? Did you spot the signs? Did you understand that they were actually reaching out for help, or did they hide it incredibly well? You go through a phase where I guess you start really doubting and questioning yourself, and I think it's really hard because there's not an answer of yes or no. It's not one specific instance. It's going to have been 7, 8, 9, 10 months, or even longer or shorter. You don't really know what they're going through until maybe it's too late. That's definitely been the case in some scenarios, and you just wish they would have helped, maybe opened up a bit more. But it's definitely made me realise that sometimes I have to be the one to approach them and say to them, look, if you need anything, ring me. If you need anything, message me. If you need anything, get hold of me. Which I do now, and something I learned from.
So would you say that's the most important thing, having friends you can talk to? Or?
Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's not necessarily friends. I think sometimes the most important thing is understanding that first and foremost, you're not the only person that has ever felt like this, or you're not the only person that's going to go through this. I think the most important thing is believing in yourself that you want to get better, or you want to see improvement. And then that will lead on into wanting to talk to friends. But if you don't want to talk to friends, there's plenty of people out there. charities like LooseHeadz, that the reason why we're here today, there's people out there that you can contact, there's people out there that you can phone, there's people out there that you can almost unburden yourself with, get it off your chest, and then start realising that there's something at the end of the tunnel, rather than sitting in a room telling yourself that you're worthless or that you're not needed or that you're not loved. And you really need to be able to just find it within yourself to make that phone call.
So how has COVID affected you mentally?
COVID's been okay. On a personal note, I remember talking and doing a few columns with LooseHeadz and the rugby column. I made myself aware from the word go, when I thought it was going to be long term in the lockdown, I made sure I had routine. I made sure that I kept doing things, that every time I got up in the morning I'd have a little routine, which sounds a little bit geeky, but it kept me planned and driven on the day. So day-to-day basis, I took it one step at a time, and I made sure that I had things to achieve Monday to Friday, and then weekends I could relax, have a drink, something to eat, just make sure that I could then switch off for a few days and start again on a Monday. As it went further forward, I realised that one, I was going to be out of contract, so I was going to be jobless, and two, I didn't really understand what was going to happen, or there was no end goal. So it made me sit back, reflect a lot on what I needed to do to move forward. I was lucky enough to get another rugby contract and employment with Ealing, which I'm incredibly grateful for, because a lot of people haven't found more employment yet from COVID, and they're in a lot worse situation. But I also tried to use my time productively. I sat down, I'm studying a Masters at De Montfort University at the moment, so I sat down and I made sure that I got assignments finished. I made sure I was doing extra reading and keeping up on things. So the way I dealt with COVID was routine, and the way I think I needed to deal with it was with routine. By having something planned out, it enabled me to feel that sense of achievement and confidence that I'd done something, and therefore I was able to drive myself forward, rather than just sitting at home, setting the alarm clock later and later, going to bed later and later, and falling in a routine of actually something that was negative rather than positive.
Okay, so would you say having routine and structure and sort of something constant is, outside of Corona, just important to everyone? Or?
Yeah, 100%. I think routine's one of the most important things that you can ever have in your life. I think when you go on holiday and you can switch off, I think that's the time to not have routine. That's the time when you can go, you know what, I've worked hard, I deserve a break, and you can go. Or weekends you can leave relatively blank. But I think on a Monday to Friday, if you need to keep your head or you need to achieve something, I think routine's one of the most important things. It gives you a reason to be doing something. I know we all get times when we feel like we want to stay in bed and we want to sleep in or have a late night, and that's fine. It's everything in moderation. But I think if you can be disciplined enough in your daily life and make sure that you have a routine and make sure that you have set goals to achieve, it's something that's going to really help you mentally move forward.
Can I ask you a question? It's coming from him.
Yes, of course.
End of your contract. What sort of thoughts went through your head? Yeah, and
fine.
How did that make you feel, and how did you overcome it?
Answer to you?
Yeah.
So, it was a really tough time when you realise that I've been playing professional rugby sort of for the past 10, 12 years. I've been in a lucky enough scenario that I've never came to the end of a contract without actually having something else in front of me. At Wasps, I always signed a year before my contract was up. When I realised I was leaving Wasps, I had a contract lined up before I even got close to the end of a contract. So when I had that feeling of getting to February, March time, knowing that I was going to be out of contract in June, July, there was a couple of months, and knowing how COVID hit, it got really, really worrying at times. It got to the point where I'm a positive person, and I always try and look at the positive in things, and I try and focus on what could happen rather than what would happen. So I was kind of laying in bed at night times, and that's when it would get me. I'd lie in bed and I'd sort of turn the TV off, say goodnight, and I'd lie there, and maybe that split sort of half an hour before I could fall asleep, there'd be those times going, what if you don't get a contract? What if you can't get a job? What if I've got a mortgage, I've got outgoings, I have family that rely on me? It got to a point where there were a couple of weeks where I was starting to worry myself. But I seemed to brush it off. I seemed to just try and focus on something else. So the way I dealt with it at that time was to focus on my academic work with my Masters, because I thought what went through my head was, if I can't get a rugby contract, I have to get a proper job. And if I've got to get a proper job, I need to be in the best position possible. I was a year into my masters. I'm a year into it now. That's what drove me forward. I was able to sit down, dedicate the days I had spare to work at that. So when I then finished rugby, I had something to fall back on. I also run a business development company with my best friends. We were just starting to get a lot of clients before lockdown, before COVID. Again, that business kind of went really, really quiet. So it was something that was worrying, because for us, we'd spent sort of the last year or 2 years growing this business, putting everything into it, going to networking events, meeting people, developing our strategies and our workshops and our seminars of how we want to deliver these things. Then all of a sudden, all that information that we put together and all that hard work just started slipping away. Now, we're really lucky. We don't really have any overheads with that company. My friend Sam Bishop, who's a psychotherapist, has his own company which he's working really hard on as well, and I'm focused on my rugby and my masters. And then when we get together, we work really hard on the business development side of things. So because it doesn't have many outgoings, we're okay. But it was something that really started worrying us. Hang on a minute, our firm's still going to be interested in this. Now we're getting towards the end of COVID, I think. Well, probably not, but we're getting to the point now where we can start looking forward a little bit more. And now companies we've started talking to again, and we've got an end visioning goal. So that feeling of feeling almost helpless for those few weeks when I was at home and I had no contract or no job or no opportunities, that's what it, for me, that made me just realise, well, sit back, that was just one part of your life, that was rugby. If rugby doesn't happen, I've got to be in the best position possible, that moving forward I can then focus on my company, or I can focus on my masters, I can focus on something else which will hopefully give me something that I enjoy and thrive in when I do finish.
So you had like a backup plan in place in case rugby is just...
It's not always been the case. Yeah, the backup plan now, I've got a couple in place. I own some property which I'm now renting out. I am doing my masters to look forward for something, and I've also got my business development company. But it sounds good on paper, but it still absolutely terrifies me, and it still worries me that, is that going to be enough? Have I done enough work in my rugby career? Have I saved enough money? Have I put enough things in place for my future? I'm lucky. I've got some savings account, and I've worked on my pension, so I've thought long term. But that's 65 plus. So what am I going to do between the age of 35 and 65? That's still 30 years. That's still as long as I've been on the earth now. So it's still a long time where I'm going to need to focus on something. And I'm not too proud to say that I'll do anything I can when I finish rugby. If it means I have to go clean toilets or go be a cleaner or do something, I'll do it if it means it pays my bills. But what I want to make sure I do achieve is I want to be in the best position possible, that when I finish rugby, I can go into a career that I really enjoy.
So what pressures do you face in your daily life?
Oh, tough one. I guess I split my life into two things. It will be pressures that I get at work with rugby and that side of life, which is making sure that I'm always improving at training, or making sure that I'm in the best shape possible, making sacrifices in daily life that make me better at what I do in my day job. But the main pressures that I find will be what we've just spoke about, which will be, what am I going to do in the next couple of years when I look to retire, when I look to finish rugby? Have I done enough? Have I made sure I'm in a position that's put me in the best possible foot forward to develop, one, my business development company, but two, also the masters I've just done myself? Am I going to be able to make that transition across as smoothly as possible, or is there going to be issues along the way?
Okay, so you say, yeah, so you think about your future a lot, and that's sort of what's pressing down on you the most.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always in denial about my age. I always tell people I'm a lot younger than I am, and I'll always continue to do that. But realistically, I'm 33 now. I didn't play Premiership rugby till I was mid-20s. I feel like I've got a lot left to give. I do feel like I'll play for another 5 or 6 years. But looking at it in a realistic way, then you're only ever one injury away from retiring. You're only ever sort of one contract away from not getting another one. So I guess being at 33 and looking towards the end of your contract, that's going to be the time when the future really starts to put pressure on you. It's one of the most important things I think that rugby's doing at the moment among the different clubs and RPA and unions and people like that, is getting younger people to think about their future. But at the same time, trying to get a 21-year-old to think what they're going to do in 10 years' time is almost impossible. I remember at 21, 22, I had no idea what I was going to do. I'm 33 and I don't really know now. So for me, yeah, it's probably looking at what's next after rugby is the biggest pressure, but it's something that I'm actively trying to work on now to not have that anxiety about that moving forward.
So how does rugby affect you mentally?
It depends how you look at it. rugby can be one of the biggest mental drains on you, with the sacrifices you have to make in order to be able to, one, be at the best of your game, but two, just to be able to turn up on a daily basis and train with the people around you. But at the same time, it's something that's been massively positive for me. It's given me a massive step forward in life. It's given me the opportunities that I've had moving forward. It's given me probably everything that I could ever dreamed of and more. But at the same time, that comes with the pressures in itself. That comes with the anxiety of sometimes playing in front of 80,000 people in a stadium, or training or playing in front of one man and his dog. You still get the same anxiety, you still get the same pressure of wanting to perform, wanting to not let your teammates down, wanting to be in a position where you show your best self off and be the best for the team, rather than going out there and being half-hearted.
Yeah.
Can you describe that anxiety a bit? What's it sort of feel like? How would you?
Yeah, the anxiety before a game? The anxiety before a game, you know, everybody feels it differently. I tend to feel really, really confident. I don't really feel too much nerves if I'm starting. If I'm starting a game, I feel really, really excited. I feel that I just want to get out there and get going. I hate warming up. I don't like warming up. I don't like doing team warm-ups. You know, we have to do them. We have to be mentally ready, and they serve their purpose. Sometimes I'd rather just go put my boots on, arrive on the bus, put my boots on and get out and play. I suppose that in itself is a little bit anxiousness. I suppose that in itself is a bit nerves, which I don't really focus on. But there'll be times when you sit on the bench, that's when you probably feel it the most. You kind of do the team warm-up, you are a little bit off it because you know you're not starting, so you can't be switched on for the whole time. And then when you're sitting on the bench, you know you can go on at any time, so you're in a state of not really switched on but not really relaxed. So you find yourself in this horrible, weird state of, am I needing, am I not? And then you try and have a laugh and a joke with each other on the bench, and you're talking and you don't really know where you are. Then I've actively sat there at times looking at games thinking, oh, I don't want to go on here. Like, I couldn't do anything worse, you know. Normally, if the game's either won or lost by a big mile, it's games like that I feel that I don't want to go on. The games that are really, really close and there's a lot of pressure or build-up, they're the games that I feel that I really want to get on, which is weird because you'd think it would be the other way around. If that feeling you get though is anxiousness, it's you get kind of like a bit knotty in your stomach, you don't really want to eat or drink, well you can't because you're on the bench, but you kind of go for a little sip of water, or you start kind of talking too much or going quiet. You can't really put your finger on what you actually feel like, and all of a sudden you get the call to go on, and I don't know what other people are like, but personally the moment you get the call to go on, they kind of shift, and you stick your gum shield in, you have a last drink, you spray your hands in, and once you're on the pitch, that's it. There's no anxiousness, there's no nervousness, all it is positivity, and you're getting on and you want to make a difference, and then once you're on, you're in a good place.
That build-up, how often would you say you've spoken about that to someone? Is that something that's spoken about? Is it quite taboo again, like you said before? Yeah,
I guess it depends who you are and who you're talking to. Some people, I know players that when they speak to other groups, they're like, oh, I'm never nervous, I'm not this, I'm not scared, and that. And you look at them before kick-off and they're throwing up and they're terrified. And so I think they think it's a taboo subject. I think they think that being nervous or anxious is a weakness when it's not. It just means you're ready. It just means that what you're about to do means something to you. It means that it doesn't make you a big man or a small man or everyone wants to describe it if you're not nervous. You know, everyone goes through these things. You're about to go on a pitch where you're going to go to war against somebody for 80 minutes and they're doing everything they possibly can to stop you doing what you want to do well, and you're doing the same to them. If you're not nervous about that, you probably shouldn't be playing the sport.
That's it. So next one's quite a change in mood.
No, that's okay.
When did you last cry?
Oh God, I used to love a good cry when I was younger. I used to feel a bit of a reset button. I haven't done it for a couple of years now, to be honest. But I used to. It was really weird because I had this conversation with a friend of mine sort of 10 years ago when I was playing amateur rugby, and he was like a big strong man and builder and things like that. And he approached them. We were talking and just having a few pints, and he actually approached it saying, "Yeah, I probably cry once a month." And I kind of looked at him and thought, "What are you on about?" He goes, "Yeah, I always feel much better for it." And that kind of sat with me for a little bit. I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't take much on, but sort of a couple of years later, I started feeling a little bit like that I wanted to cry or I wanted to let something out. And I always remember him saying that, and I ended up doing it. And then it felt like a reset button for me. And I ended up doing it. I think I went through a period of about a year or two where I cried quite regularly, and it seemed to just reset things. I never told anybody. I've never told anyone this before in my life, but it was something that seemed to work. But then I haven't done it now for years, so I wonder if it was just something I was going through at that time. But no, it definitely felt like a reset when I needed it.
Do you feel like you haven't needed to cry, Or
No, I just feel like I haven't needed to at the moment. If I felt in a position where I wanted to, I'd probably lock myself away and give myself a good cry and let it out. But at the moment, I haven't really felt like things have been on top of me, or I felt like I needed that reset at the moment.
Why would you lock yourself away?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think for me, it would probably be something quite personal. I'm always seen as someone that's quite positive, someone that's outgoing, someone that's quite jovial. I don't tend to suffer too much with the anxiety side of things, or I don't think I do. So if I feel like I needed a cry or something, or to let something out, I feel like I'd be better to do that just behind closed doors, let it out, reset, and then be myself again, if that makes sense. Even though that still is being myself, but I feel that would be something that I'd like to do on my own and let out, and then address things after that.
So it wouldn't be out of like fear of, because you said of your positivity, how you're seen. You're not afraid that how that's going to affect how you see you?
I'm very lucky, and I know that there's a few questions coming on later with friends and things like that. I've got some really, really good friends. If I needed to give them a call and have a cry, I would. I had an issue a couple of months ago where I won't go into the details of it or the specifics, but I had a pretty big issue that was eating me alive, that was making me anxious, that was making me feel a little bit, okay, what am I going to do here? Get 2 or 3 phone calls to my friends, had deep conversation with them. They didn't even say anything. They just let me get off my chest. Felt 100 times better for that. And just them listening on the end of the phone, I guess, giving you a few things back, kind of puts things in perspective. So that kind of works for me.
That's excellent.
So I think you sort of answered it there, but the next question is, have you ever had emotions out of fear, and why, if so?
I don't know if they're out of fear. I think the emotions I tend to feel are if things are just starting to build pressure. I find it hard to define what fear or pressure would be here, because I guess there would be fear when we were talking about the contract earlier, and we were saying about there wasn't actually anything in place. I guess that was driven by fear, but I don't see it as fear. I see it more as a pressure that I need to release or I need to address. So when I start feeling these issues at the moment, I don't see them as fear, I see them as problems. So I see them as a problem that I need to solve, or a problem that I need to get to the bottom of, rather than something that I'm scared of and I want to hide away. Is probably the way I look at it.
Okay, so what gets you out of bed in the morning, or what makes you tick?
Gets me out of bed in the morning it's probably a personal drive that I want to get better. I want to achieve something. We spoke in depth about routine, about why I put routines in place, why I want to achieve things. If I didn't have those routines or little things I want to achieve, then I'd end up probably just lazing around. I'm the sort of person that I'm awake before my alarm goes off. I'm up sort of 6:30 in the morning at the latest. I want to get up, I go out and I walk the dog. I clear my mind straight away for the day, and I start thinking about things I want to achieve. If it's at rugby and I've got a normal rugby day, it'll be right, what training sessions we got on, what do I want to achieve from these sessions, what happened yesterday. If it's a rest day, what am I going to do today? Can I have a day when I just sit in front of the telly and watch Netflix, or is it, right, have I got university work? Have I got development work that I need for business? Have I got certain things I need to do today? And if so, I want these done by 1 p.m. I give myself sort of targets, right, it's 6:30 now, 7 o'clock, walk the dog. I can either go have a coffee, sit down, have breakfast and sleep for the next 3 hours, or I can get it done, and then I can have an afternoon where I say, you know what, I've achieved something, I can actually relax a little bit now.
Okay, so you said about sort of targets, long-term, short-term goals and routines. Would you say you do anything else to help with your mental?
I don't think I go out of my way to do things. I think I do things subconsciously. I think I probably speak to a group of different friends every day on the phone. I'm always phoning up, seeing how they are, chatting on things. I think I do that, 1, because I enjoy it, but 2, because I think subconsciously it's probably something that helps, is talking to people. I tend to as well tell them never talk to me about rugby. If I'm phoning them up, I'm phoning them to talk to them as mates. I don't want them to be like, some of them understand rugby, some don't. I've got some of my best friends that have a clue about rugby, and then they try talking to me about it, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm not interested in trying to explain rugby or explain what happened or explain why I am or not playing and things like that. Like, how's things with you? Then I turn it around because he's a window fit, and I say to him, I was like, oh, how's the windows? And he's like, I don't want to talk about that. I was like, yeah, it's the same thing. So we'll talk about his family or our family, and we'll talk about other things. But I just tend to set, as you mentioned it, for me it's long-term, short-term goals. Like, what do I want to achieve in 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years time? What do I want to achieve day-to-day basis? What do I achieve in a year? That's kind of the goals for me that kind of keeps me going. I sit down probably once a month and write these things down. address them, have no one knows it, no one knows where my notebook is, it's hidden away, no one knows I do this. It's just something that I've always done, and it's something that helps me because off those goals I can just make subtle changes without really knowing myself, and it kind of works. But I'm way off where I want to be.
You said that it's something you've always done, so is that like since primary school, or has been developed over time?
So when I say something I've always done, it's probably, I did it for a little bit when I was high school. I wrote a few things down, but that wasn't really life related. That was more, how am I going to play for England? Or I was all football till I was 15, 16. Like, how am I going to be a pro footballer? What can I do? And then I got to 16 and I played for England, schoolboy level, England North. And then it was like, right, okay, I'm okay at this sport. How do I get better? And that was going to college, that was getting an education first and foremost, that was getting a degree while training for that. So I kind of did it a little bit at high school. I'll be honest, in college I kind of let it go a bit. I think other things just took over. University was a blank for probably the wrong reasons. And then when I found myself, when I when I didn't make it, I went to Gloucester for a year after university. I didn't make it the first time. I was in the academy there, I was a senior academy player. Didn't make it. I had an agent who was okay. And I got to the end, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had that, again, what we spoke about earlier, a little bit of that anxiousness, a little bit of that feeling of I don't know what to do. So the way I coped with it was I went on holiday for a week and came back 8 months later. I did a summer in Iron Apple with some of my friends, which was probably the best and worst idea you could ever imagine. I went over there, I cleared my head of everything, came back, played sevens in Dubai for a invitational side. Then I ended up playing for Hereford and building my way back up through the leagues. And I went through the leagues of like National 2, 1, Champ, Premiership, sort of one by one. That's when I started doing my notes again. When I started playing at Richmond, I was working and playing. I didn't do my notes then. When I got to Jersey, I started writing them down again because I actively knew, right, if I'm going to make a decision to put a career on a back burner, go to Jersey, I knew that, right, I've sacrificed a career here. I need to know how I'm going to get to the Premiership because that's the only reason I went to Jersey. I wanted to play Premiership rugby. So it kind of National 1, I started looking at things again, saying, right, how do I get better? How do I achieve this? I had some really, really good people there that helped me achieve things. They wouldn't know I was doing the little lists and stuff, but they helped me achieve things in National 1. Then Championship, I've always said I'm never sort of scared to admit it. I put video clips together, sent them to every DOR in the Premiership, sent them out to everybody that I thought would look at them. I actively was going, I need to play Premiership. I need to prove it to myself. I wasn't good enough when I was at Gloucester. Am I good enough now? I had to prove it to myself. And I had my lists with me there, my little goals, my little things that would drive me forward. And then out the blue, I got a phone call off Wasps and they made me an offer, and sort of off the back of that, they say the rest was history, and I had my opportunity.
Just last quick tangent on
Let's
that.
go.
Anyone watching might hear this about the list making and go, cool, sounds like a great idea. How would you sort of, like, was it one day you just went, I'm going to write a list and then stuck to it, or was it developed a little bit over time?
I saw it online years and years and years ago. I saw it just, was it online or did I hear someone say about it? I always remember something, I can't remember, it was something that just clicked that someone else did. I don't know if I saw it online or if someone told me about it, but I gave it a go and it just seemed to work. By actually having something on paper meant I was able to see it. By seeing something, for me, that's how I learn. If you just put me in a classroom or something and someone dictates to me, I won't learn. If I can go and write something, go and experience it, go and do it, then I know that I'm going to learn it, or at least then it's going to add something which makes me stick to it. So by writing something down, it just made me realise that, right, that's actually physical now, that's actually real. It's not something that I've just thought of and forget. I wrote it down, it's physical to me, it's important to me. It was important enough for me to write down, it must be important enough to try and achieve it, and that's kind of the way forward I went with it.
So, why are you taking part in this campaign?
Look, I just think at the moment there's a lot more media hype and a lot more people talking about mental health, and a lot more men are coming forward, but I still don't think it's enough. I still think that there's a huge amount of people out there that are suffering and don't know which way to turn. I do think there's people that I know that won't come up to me yet. I do think there's people that we all know in this room that know somebody that doesn't know they're fighting their own battle yet. What I want from this campaign is them seeing people in positions that seem successful, that are feeling the same feelings that everybody feels. If me speaking on this campaign and just raising a little bit of awareness makes one person pick up a phone and make a call, sends one email, sends one text message to a friend that just opens them up, then it's been a success. And I just think it's something that we can't do enough of at the moment. It needs to keep getting hammered. It needs to be keep drawn up in the media. It needs to be people keep talking about it, especially with COVID at the moment. We don't know what's happening. We understand that everybody is going through bad patches at the moment, but if we look stereotypically at families at the moment, it's going to be the man that is deemed to be in charge of a family. I know that's very stereotypical, but at the moment that is what people think, and that's what men think sometimes. They need to realise that just because they're ahead of their family or they're going out doing things, they actually need to know that they're not on their own, or they can show weakness, they can show vulnerability and ask for help. That will help them in the long term, and that's something that I want this campaign to raise awareness to.
Okay, that leads quite nicely into the next one. So how many men do you know struggle with, in their mind? So
I know that there's quite a few friends of mine that have struggled. I know a couple of my friends have taken their own life, which has been quite hard sort of moving forwards, but I also know there'll be plenty that I know that I have no idea about, that haven't had the strength or haven't felt that they need to open up yet. Just going back on that previous point, the one thing I want them to take from this, if they see this video or they understand that other people are talking about it, they just feel that if they are struggling, they can make contact.
So who's your man hero and why?
It's a tough question. I was thinking about this driving down here, and it was one that kind of made me think about, one, what would be the right answer to say, and two, what would be the truthful answer to say. The right answer for me is what people want to hear, is anybody that is strong enough to speak up, and anybody that feels that they need to get off their chest. Anyone in that scenario is a hero to me, because that is true. But the right answer to me wouldn't necessarily always be that man. I'm massive. My dad is my hero. He's an ex-military man. He's very, very strong. He's very, very strong-minded, and he's achieved a huge amount in his life, which is something that I could never live up to. But it's that stereotype that I spoke about a minute ago of the man of that family is anybody in that scenario that feels that they need to speak up, or anybody that feels that they need help. They're the people that we should be in awe of the most. They're the people that should be the heroes, the people that have actually made a difference to move forward. And that's kind of the way I look at it now.
You said, excuse my language here, I'm going to be a bit of a dick.
That's fine.
You said that you would never be anything like your dad, if I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
Why do you... Is that a pressure you put on yourself?
No, not at all. My dad and me and my dad are best mates. Like he's an absolute hero, military hero. When I say I can't live up to that, it's his military experiences and what he's achieved within that and things like that. He's a really, really good man, very strong man, and he's achieved a huge amount in his life, and that is something that I'll always be proud of.
Cool. Okay. So what does it mean to be a man to you? Like, what's your definition of a man?
Truthfully, don't know. I really don't have an answer to that. I thought about this question coming over, and I don't think there is anything that makes you a man. If you look at it gender-wise, and yeah, obviously it's an obvious answer. But if you look at it, what makes you a man? Is it just not being alive? Is it just not being you? It's tough, because somebody will say, "Oh, someone that's big and strong," or someone that can admit this or say that. But I don't think it is. I don't think anybody can be a man if you're that way. It's a really tough question.
Cool. So last one. Yeah, feel free to say no. But is there anything that like you've never said either to someone in person, you never said in front of a camera, that you just think this is a good place to?
Yeah, I did it earlier. The speaking about the goals I make, and sitting down and writing those out, and making them physical in order something to achieve, was something I never told anyone before. I know other people do it. I know some of my friends that do it, but they have no idea that I've been doing it for years. And also the cry to a reset. It was something I'd never told anyone before. That was something I kept to myself. But I feel that if I'm ever going to tell anybody or anything like that, and give anybody any sort of advice, then this would be the time to do it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's all the questions.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice one, guys.
To do that.
Yeah.
Sick, mate.
Thank you.
That was proper good, that.